The White House said U.S. taxpayers could see an extra $1,000 in their tax refunds next year. Joining us to discuss is public policy analyst and economist Michael Busler, who's a professor of finance at Stockton University. So, Michael, good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us today. The White House said that the increase in tax refunds are expected to give taxpayers total an additional $91 billion in refunds. So, to start off, is that significant in economic terms?
It is. And if it turns out to be about $1,000 per household, that will help out significantly. Now, it's not a huge amount of money, but right now, most people are concerned with affordability and even buying some of the basics. The extra $1,000 will certainly help them. And it'll also spur economic activity. Again, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's enough to increase demand in the marketplace and keep the economy growing. All of this is a result of the bill that was passed back in July, where the tax cuts that were originally passed in 2017 and implemented in 2018 were set to expire at the end of this year. Congress and then the president passed an extension which makes these lower tax rates permanent. And it also gave some tax cuts to some specific classes, like people who work in the hospitality industry, who collect a lot of their income in tips, people that work overtime. And as an incentive to get people to work overtime, he eliminated taxes on any overtime, which is a big boost because when you work overtime, you typically get time and a half. Why most people may have been reluctant to do that was it puts them in a higher tax bracket. So while they may on paper look like they're getting time and a half, they were really coming home with much less than that. Since there's no tax on it at all, this will encourage people to work harder and to work more. Also, Social Security income based on some income limits will no longer be taxed. That will certainly help people who rely on Social Security as their sole means of support. Right now, or prior to the law, about 85% of Social Security payments were taxed. That will now be eliminated, and that will help the people on Social Security and also tend to be a little bit of a push for the economy. All good.
So, Michael, you said about this refund, it could spur activity in the economy. Can I just ask you, what are we exactly looking at here? What impact could it have on consumer spending and overall growth?
So most of the people receiving the benefit from lower taxes will end up spending almost all of it. And when that happens, that creates more consumer spending. Consumer spending accounts for about 70% of GDP. So by increasing consumer spending, you'll tend to grow the economy. People will buy more things. Business will make more things to meet that new demand. It also has what economists refer to as a multiplying effect. Consumers spend the money, business gets the money, they make income, they reinvest the money, create more goods and services, and it has kind of a multiplying effect on the economy. Again, not a huge amount of money, but combined with the Trump administration's other pro-growth policies, this should tend to accelerate economic growth. Because the government was shut down, we're not sure what economic growth was for the third quarter. I suspect it was at least 3%. The fourth quarter would likely have been higher, except about half of the fourth quarter, the government was shut down, and that has a negative impact. But going into 2026, most of what President Trump has been doing, lowering regulations, making it easier for business to expand, attracting trillions of dollars in foreign investment, that should lead to more growth next year. And the extra tax refund for people will also tend to help with that.
You know what's funny, Michael? Whenever I hear consumers getting money and spending all of it, it gives me flashbacks to the stimulus checks during the pandemic. I mean, let me just ask you a little bit about this issue. Does a larger refund potentially have upwards pressure on inflation currently?
So one of the fears is that if consumer spending goes up faster than businesses' ability to produce more output, that will be inflationary. But because President Trump, in the big bill passed in July, gave some incentives for business to invest and expand, traditionally, when you make an investment, you depreciate it over some number of years, depending on what the investment is. President Trump said you can write the whole investment off in the first year, reducing tax bills for business and encouraging business to make an investment. So although the tax cuts will increase demand, there's incentives now with supply side tax cuts for business to increase output. And I don't expect any upward pressure on price from this. And I do expect more of an increase in output. So this is a good thing. We don't know what he's going to do. Trump also proposed a $2,000 rebate check for everybody from the tax revenue that's been collected. I'm not sure whether that's going to go through or not, but that too will help to stimulate demand. I expect next year to be a high growth year for the economy.
So, Michael, this tax refund, I mean, where does the money come from? Does this mean that a reduction in tax revenue for the federal government because the government is collecting less money from taxpayers?
Yes. So if households are paying less taxes, then the government will collect less. However, Trump says that even with the less tax revenue from given the from the lower tax rates, the higher economic growth will create more income. So even though we're taxing at a lower rate, we're taxing a larger amount of income, and you should still see tax revenue increased. After every tax cut, total tax revenue increased after that. Even though the rates were lower, economic growth was greater, creating more income, more taxable income, and an increase in tax revenue. You might take a look at what Reagan did in 1982 with his tax cuts. Still, tax revenue went up, and the tax cut went into effect in 1982. 1984, the economy grew at a 7.4% rate. So with that high growth, creating more income, even though the tax rates are lower, tax revenue will go up. This administration is very concerned about the deficit and the public debt, and they want to do what they can to get that down, mostly by decreasing government spending. But President Trump feels every household feels that their taxes are too high. So by keeping the tax rates lower and giving them more money to spend, it should give people even a better feeling and more comfortable. You start to see consumer confidence, which has dipped recently. You'll start to see that go up next year too, as people feel more confident about the economy.
So just finally, you're saying that there's no concern in your mind that with this higher tax refund that potentially the federal government could take on more debt. There's no concern in your mind about that?
No, the lower tax rates, we said, will probably reduce revenue by $91 billion, but he's already collected $395 billion from tariffs. And if economic growth increases, as I suspect it will, total tax revenue will increase, not decrease. This is a very positive thing. Lower tax rates always encourage more economic activity. And as long as there's supply side cuts too, which there were, that will increase economic growth and provide a higher standard of living for all Americans.
Well, all right, Michael. Always great to speak with you. Thank you for your time today. Have a great weekend.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.